live, going live.
Well, apparently you're live.
Good day, Anne. How are you? We're live, I hope.
Yep, I think
Hi,
we
Anne.
are.
How are you? Cal, is that Cal's in, or was Cal from yesterday?
Yeah, I think he'll be in bed, so maybe he might be up now.
Good Australian coffee.
I've got lemonade.
Shell's got fresh lemonade. Mum's place, she's got so many lemons. The lemon trees have given so many lemons this year. We've decided we're making lots of fresh lemonade. So that's really nice.
Yum.
So any questions? We're not going to make a long live stream today. We're just going to catch up with everybody, let them know that we're back home safely. And I've got a bit of a ding on my head, so you can see that I've got a bit of a cut there. It's the only thing I can see. It's like, you know, when you've got something that's you're focusing on. So who is in?
Nobody's saying hello.
Come on, say hello. How is the sound? Is it good? Because it's on a different camera than we normally use. And it seems really wide and really bright and really good quality from what I'm seeing. You can see every single wrinkle on my face. So hopefully you guys can see the same.
Good coffee.
Good coffee. Good coffee.
Good coffee.
I've got to say, almost everywhere in the world we go, it really is. The coffee's really as good as it is in Australia. But then that's just dissing everybody, isn't it?
It is really. They do good coffee, but we've not always found it.
So it's a bit. It's what you're used to and what you like. So
who's in? Who's lurking?
So I'm not going to say anything until Anne said hello.
Our feral lunch lady says hi. Good sound and image. Good to know.
Beautiful.
Sorry, something went wrong.
Yeah, something's gone wrong. We might unplug the Google device if she's going to rock up every now and again. Just pull it out the back, Michelle. It's got a plug on the back. There you go.
There we go.
We don't want your Google devices sort of talking, or your Amazon devices or whatever.
You're talking to us as well.
So not much to report. We're back safely. The drive down, you saw the video about that. It was pretty uneventful. It's a long drive. Ended up being pretty much from morning till night time. I think we got back eventually about 10ish or so.
Yeah, about that 10:30. Yeah. It rained most of the way, although we did have a bit of sunshine when we hit Victoria.
Sun came out when we crossed the border into Victoria, as you saw in the video, and then it rained again for the last sort of couple of hours. So the weather's been a little bit hit and miss, but it is just the very beginning of springtime here in Australia, and the weather subsequently has been gorgeous. I didn't do the live stream yesterday because we had bits going on. I thought I was going to be able to do it, and then it turns out we couldn't. So apologies if you were waiting yesterday for the live stream.
Good afternoon, Susan.
Hey, Susan.
You're in Australia. Got an afternoon there, so it must be in Australia.
Yeah. So
that's it.
That's it, really.
We're back.
So we're off. See you later.
Bye.
I haven't got a lot there's been so much going on since we've got back, you know, with family and you know, catching up with people and what have you, that we haven't really had time to do a great deal. I got that video edited, the drive down here, and I've got a lot planned to do. I've actually got a new computer as well. So we've been able to upgrade the computer so I can get on. So I'm testing this webcam and sound to see how that goes.
Of course, Susan, lovely Ballarat. I forgot you're in Ballarat, not far from us.
It's beautiful. What's it like today, Susan?
And Cheryl says, hi, good to see you both home. Yeah, it's good to be home.
Hi,
Cheryl.
Tony. I saw Cheryl, Tony.
Yeah.
Tony just dropped in.
You get the messages before me, so you can see them. I don't need mine.
I can see. I saw Cheryl pop up there, and you said Cheryl, and I could see Susan, and Tony Amali's just popped up as well. So that's good. Tony's in Ireland.
I think.
So it must be, what time is it there?
I think it must be late.
I'm
not sure.
No, it doesn't matter. Tony can tell us what the time
Quite windy
is.
in
What
Ballarat.
are you doing? It's always windy in Ballarat because you're up in the hills.
I think, isn't it? We're a bit windy.
Ballarat's a little bit higher than where we are in Melbourne, so they tend to get the cooler weather. I'm guessing it's going to be a little colder up in Ballarat.
I think the time we went through Ballarat, it was freezing, wasn't it?
It was almost snowing.
Yeah,
it does
really cold.
snow up there. But could have asked Google, but she's just switched off.
So Rachel says, now that you're home, what's the favourite dish you're wanting to cook from your travels?
Oh, that's a tricky one. I think I do want to do a little bit of Mexican food because it's fresh in our memory from Mexican. So we've actually bought in some tortillas, and we're probably going to do something a little bit Mexican, just as a little reminiscent of. And I've been kind of lamenting also to the Turkish.
Yeah.
We were talking the other day about those beautiful Turkish fish.
Oh, yeah.
On the seafront in Istanbul, even though Istanbul was shut down. It was pretty dire, the fact that all the restaurants and that were shut down. And actually, the fish bar that we like to go to in Istanbul was shut down for most of the time we were there.
It was right at the beginning, it was open, and then it did open a little bit and then closed again, didn't it?
So really, we're missing those beautiful oily fish.
We've been having curries.
We've been having curries, but that was my mistake. I decided to take a cauliflower and make a vegetarian curry out of it, and it was a big curry. So now we're paying for that by having curry every day.
So Rachel says, "Congrats, you've made it home safe." And Tony says, 3 a.m.
Good morning, Tony.
What are you doing?
Thanks for staying up for us to get to bed.
Eddie says, "Good morning."
Good morning, Eddie. So yeah, as you go through, I love the grilled mackerel. It was like a mackerel or a sardine. I think that they were mackerel. I think
it was a mackerel.
That they were cooking on the waterfront in Istanbul
with the pomegranate seeds.
With the pomegranate
nice dressing, wasn't it?
Salad on top. We're going to be having something like that pretty soon if I can get hold of the fish, and we're probably going to do a bit of Mexican cooking as well. Practice some of the Mexican cooking.
So Eddie says, "Looking forward to more cooking tutorials."
Yeah, well, it may well come. We're just finding our feet at the moment.
It'll be a bit slow to start with, but we'll get there. We'll get there. We keep saying we're going to have some time off, but we don't. Do we? We just keep plodding on.
No, and it's taken a few days just to get the sleep pattern correct because I was really struggling with sleep when I arrived here, getting up at odd times.
I think being in quarantine didn't help. We couldn't get out and go for a walk or do anything, wasn't it? There's nothing to do.
So that's only just this last 3 or 4 days I've been getting up at a normal hour. We've got loads of hard drives that we're going through all the I won't get them out now, but we've got a load of hard drives that I've got to go through and look at what we've got filmed from our walk in John O'Groats to Land's End and start editing those. And we've got a few other videos that we made that we haven't yet edited, which could be quite interesting. There's a video or 2 food videos from Japan that still got to be done. So that'll be a bit of fun.
Yeah, we got a few videos that we filmed and never actually got around to editing and getting up, so maybe we'll get those. As Eddie said, once you're settled again, do what you need to do for a bit. Yeah,
the main thing was, as we were traveling, because we've been on the road for 6 years with the odd occasional stop, is that we were finding it hard to edit all the time while we just sort of sat on the edge of a bed in a hotel or sat at a sort of dressing table. And that, so it's I've got myself a good computer back here in Australia, and I can actually that'll handle all the big files that we have, and we'll be working on that. But I'm not going to make any promises at the moment because it's finding the workflow.
So Anne-Marie Creative says, "Hi guys, welcome back home to you both. I've been following along your journey since Turkey. My husband and I really loved your hiking videos to Land's End. What a journey you've had in 2021.
Yeah, we'll be working on who was that, sorry?
Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie, we'll be working on the rest of that series as well. So you're going to see a lot more of the hiking series and a few from other parts of the world that we just never got around to doing. There was actually a nice video I made in Hanoi when we were in Hanoi last time, and it was meant to go up in 2020.
Beginning of.
And the video, the compilation itself was really too difficult to do on a laptop, and also then because of the lockdowns and all the hysteria that's gone over the last year, it just didn't feel appropriate to put it up from the year before, when everybody was sort of walking around and enjoying themselves. It just seemed that it would have been inappropriate. So that video, I got to decide when we're going to put that one up, but it's going to be looking at Hanoi in Vietnam, sort of like the streets of Hanoi. That'll be a really nice video.
So Cheryl says, are you still on a farm or in the city?
No, we're just a little out of the city, Cheryl.
They're not a farm.
No, not on the farm. The farm was in France. When we had the farm before, we were living in France with the family. That's when our kids were quite young. So they're all grown up now. So that's some time ago. We'd like to do it again though at some point.
One day.
One day.
One day. Let's do lots of things.
So many things to do.
What else?
So where were we going? So yes, we've got the John O'Groats Land's End. There's probably about, I don't know, 40 or 50 episodes of that I've got to work on. We've got some really nice food videos coming up from Tokyo, as I said, from Osaka. There's a lovely video. It just felt like last year wasn't the best time to do those videos, because what we found when we were putting up stuff, even from India, that people were saying, why aren't you wearing your mask? Or why, and you're thinking, well, because it wasn't, it was before. We've still got quite a few from 2019 that we didn't put up because of last year was so ridiculous.
Even some from India, I think we've probably still got some.
Possibly even some from India. They just felt like they weren't the right sort of videos to be putting up, when the only thing people have been talking about for the last sort of 18 months is,
Yes. Anonymous Vape says, welcome home. Thank you.
Thank you. So what have we got to talk about? So maybe we'll do another live stream next week, and we'll do it around a food sort of based thing. Maybe we'll do a little bit of cooking or something live, or come up with something that would be a bit interesting. I got all my knives again, so that's nice to have my knives.
Mm-hmm. Your knives, yes.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm reading. Susan said, I seem to recall you mentioned FTG at one stage. I don't know
what's FTG.
I'm trying to work it out. I didn't get that one. Sorry, Susan.
Sorry.
Enlighten me.
Hang on, we're going to sound so stupid when she says what it is. We probably should know.
And Cheryl said, while. I'm not sure what that is either, Cheryl. I'm not having a good day here.
Stop being cryptic, everyone.
Fern Tree Gully.
Fern Tree Gully?
No,
it's still not. I know where Fern Tree Gully is, but we're not in Fern Tree Gully. We got a friend. I think I shouldn't say really. One of our YouTube friends, one of our regular subscribers. She lives out at Fern Tree Gully Way. And we weren't, when we lived in the city, we weren't a long way from Fern Tree Gully, but.
And Rebecca Lynn says, "Oh, good for you. Good for you. You get to go outside now."
Yes, we do. Well. We've come back to a place that's kind of going into the hysterias of lockdown and all the sort of craziness that we had everywhere else in the world. That's starting to happen right now here in Australia, and it's a great shame. Actually, there's a lot of people now. I'm going to be controversial a little bit, but there's a lot of people, for instance, today that are going to demonstrate against what's happening, but the police presence is horrendous. I mean, they're really tomorrow. They're apparently going to have like many tens of thousands of police present, which is a little bit of a shame, but because people are just a little bit sick of this. I think they're just a little bit sick of what's going on, and they just want to get and have their opinions, but not to be allowing people to have their opinions seems a little bit bizarre to me.
So Cheryl said, so how long before you're on the road again? Sounds like it could be a while. I think that's where the while came from. We got the end of it.
Okay. Well, we're planning to, we want to do a trip around Tasmania, maybe towards the end of November, maybe.
Yeah. But it depends how things.
But it depends if they'll let us. I mean, at the moment, we're sort of, this is one of the disadvantages of sort of rushing back to Australia when we plan to come back to Australia. It takes so long to plan a trip now, like months. So when we actually planned to come back to Australia, everything over here was hunky-dory. Yeah, and it's only subsequently, because we've already paid for the flights, we've already paid for all the costs and things of getting here, and then suddenly they throw a curveball in that Australia is going into a hissy fit of lockdowns and sort of.
Yes, Susan says totally over it. Number 8 for Ballarat.
Yeah,
it'll get better.
We're all over it.
They'll get there eventually.
The problem is they don't realise it yet. The media and the governments are still absolutely wallowing in it. They love this stuff. It's the best thing that's ever happened to them. So it's a little tiresome. So we couldn't really, we kind of on a downward slope and couldn't put the brakes on. We once you've decided to go back, you've already invested it, and then suddenly it goes, you've just got to deal with it. And that's the way it is. We're happy. We're glad to be home, but you know.
And looking at the rest of the world, Australia will get there, just be a lot later than everybody else.
That'd be 6-8 months behind everyone else. But we're not planning not to do anything. We'd like to go back and
So Eddie says, when the economy tanks in Australia, they'll be begging businesses to open back up and begging people to spend money. Well, the businesses want to be open. That's the thing.
Yeah, I mean, the economy is going to tank globally. So the problem is usually when a country has a recession, like the US has a recession and Australia is strong, then you see this sort of like boom bust thing that goes on with the economy all the time. But when the whole global thing has gone into a complete recession, there's no real examples of that. So we can't look historically back and see when everybody around the world decided to spend billions of dollars on furloughing people and what have you. So it may not have the negative effect that you suspect. I don't know. It's certainly having a massive negative effect on individual people, but I don't think the government really give a stuff, to be honest, on whether or not, they're never, as I've said before, and I know I rub people up the wrong way, and I don't mean to, but the people like our politicians here and the ones we've had in Mexico and the ones in the UK and that, they will never want for anything for the rest of their life. So they have no real empathy with the rest of us. Their jobs are jobs for life, and they basically, even when they retire, I remember when the European Union, when Nigel Farage was talking about when they retire from when they retire from, not retire, but when they lose their position, they get paid, I think, for another 12 months of full salary with that, for doing nothing. They can just do what they want, and then they get a massive pension from that. Now, all the government are pretty much the same. So these guys will never want for anything. So they're already in a position where nothing they can do can affect their well-being or wealth for them and probably a generation. I mean, even the Thatcher kids are still, dining out on their mother's wealth. So it's...
Feral Lunch Lady says Colombia is open to tourism. I may go there next.
Well, we're still probably we need a bit of a rest time. You know what we're like. We're going to be like Duracell bunnies. We'll be up and running and wanting to go and visit some places. We've already sort of talked about maybe going cycling in Japan if Japan will. There's quite a few things planned. So remind me, push me on it. Cycling in Japan, hiking or cycling in Tasmania. We still want to do the Camino de Santiago in Spain, which we might do in a slightly different way. But right now, none of that can be done.
No.
Fortress Australia, we've stepped into it. So
we're doing a bit of planning.
Yeah,
it's good for us because it makes us plan. We're not good at planning.
No.
So JM603 says, yes, no one that represents the people are actually very representative. As you say, they are wealthy and happy regardless.
There is an element of that, even all the way, even to the opposition parties. And this is the problem. You see, you've got an opposition party who also are on pensions for life and looking at increased salaries and comfortable living in wealthy houses, in wealthiest estates and homes all over the country. And that's the opposition, not the people that are in power. The people in power are sort of jobs for life. The medical professionals, the scientists that are giving all the advice are basically doing it on the back that they've got jobs for life also. I mean, technically all of these people that are giving advice now are getting really good pension schemes. If they get kicked off of the job they're doing, they're sorted for life. So they don't have a lot of empathy, and consequently, what can I say? I don't want to go on about this all the time. It's too much.
Eddie says, time to start a garden to table series, Steve.
Garden to table, yeah. There's a lot of ideas. We've got a little book of ideas. Michelle and I are trying to sort of eat healthily, and I need to get my weight down because I put a lot of weight on in Mexico. A lot of weight, like much heavier than I've ever been. So that's already going down quite quickly. Just eating good vegetables and good local sort of produce, that'll get us sorted in that respect. We've got a few ideas. We just haven't been able to do anything for the last 2 years because we've just been bouncing from country to country. I say we haven't done anything. We've done a lot. We also have got a video. Have I mentioned about the?
I don't know.
Michelle doesn't know.
is deciding whether he wants to mention it or not.
Well, once I say it, it's
I
out
know.
there, and I can't kick back on it. But we also, Michelle and I, stayed on the QE2 last year.
We did mention that a long time
Yeah,
ago
we
in
did.
Turkey.
We stayed on the QE2 and we made a video about that experience. And the QE2, for those of you who don't know, is no longer a sailing ship. It's actually a fixed hotel in Dubai, and we did a little series on that. So there's quite a lot. There's quite a lot of work for me to do, even if I don't go anywhere at the moment. There's quite a lot of work.
Rebecca says garden to table is a great idea. Kitchen Baker asks, why do you ask for money? Just curious.
Ask for money.
Ask for money.
Don't understand that really. I think you're talking about why does somebody who works in YouTube. It's funny, in the old-fashioned days, back in the sort of like 2000s and 15s, and people always found it a little bit strange that anybody who decided to work in YouTube might expect to try and earn a salary from YouTube. And I've had people say, why do you, I think this is what you're getting at, why do you say do you want to support the channel? Now, nobody's saying to you, who is it?
Pippin Baker.
Pippin. Nobody's saying to you, look, if you want to sit and watch me drink this cup of coffee, you have to pay for it. Nobody's ever said that to you. It's not like the BBC where you have to pay a license fee whether you want it or not. This is basically completely free content. But when you choose to actually do this full time, you try to make a modest living out of it. You do what is fashionable. If people want to actually support you as a channel, they'll offer you support. But I always find it a little bit funny. The most vocal people who are against this are the people that would never support a channel anyway. And I often find it's more a question that older people ask, because it's usually people who are above the age of 40, let's say, who are going to ask that sort of question because they don't understand how YouTube and social media works. If you said to a young kid, who's like watching a gamer they really love and occasionally sort of sending $5 and saying, yeah, do this or do that, they can't even get they're online. That's their spending. That's the way they sort of do. And if they enjoy it, you talk to an older couple, you'll say to them, why do you pay your license fee, or why do you pay for Sky TV or whatever, practical thing you do? And they're saying, well, they've never known any different, so that's what they pay for. Younger kids nowadays they're not interested in terrestrial TV or being through certain types of entertainment, so they tend to be happy just to pay for things that they watch. So why do you do it? Because we don't do it. We just say to people, if you want to, if you enjoy what we do, and we work really hard at what we do. I mean, imagine, for example, the walk from John O'Groats to Land's End. A lot of people say, well, would you have done it if you didn't have YouTube? Probably we would have done, but it was a lot harder. I mean, it cost an absolute fortune to walk from John O'Groats to Land's End. You might not think so, but it cost many, many, many thousands of dollars. And occasionally people would buy us a coffee or a tea and say, oh, I love what you're doing. We'd buy you a coffee, or we'd buy you some, fish and chips. Now, in that 3 months of walking, we might have spent sort of $4,000-6,000, dollars doing the walk. We may have received in for that sort of, $200-300. I don't know, but it's not like we're saying to people, you have to support the channel. I think I got a feeling you're from that older generation, just don't really understand.
We'll see what they come back in.
You don't really understand the way social media works. We're working, we've got young brains, young minds working in a young person's industry, right? And this is the way it works. YouTube is a free platform, and lots of people, you'll see more and more people, they're just supporting people they enjoy watching. And, but you won't ever find a channel. There are quite a few channels that make really good livings out of doing what they do on YouTube. A lot of channels that make really good livings on it, but they don't just sit there all day going. They occasionally say, you want to support us? Support us. But it's not a forced thing. I think the people that get most annoyed, they seem to think that they've got their arm behind their back and being pushed over to the cash machine. But it's a complete nonsense. I had people say this before. You know even family members have kind of don't understand. You know, it's like.
Well, fellow lunch lady says, not fair. I'm 67 and I respect bloggers who get paid. I've been online longer than most young people. So I'm as up to date as anyone else.
Yeah, and that's exactly. I hope you're not saying I'm not fair. I'm saying generally, this is the people that do ask it. Now, we've got young minds. We've got young, inquisitive minds as well, like yourself. And sorry, take that back then. There are many of us that fully understand social media and how it works. But generally, if there's somebody that's going to grumble and moan about it, it's going to be a certain age demographic. It's just the way it is. I can't change that. That's the facts.
Eddie says out of every 10 channels, probably only one of them makes significant money off of it. Most of the people now make more with Patreon than the ad revenue system.
Yes, that's true. And I'd say probably out of every 10,000 channels, or maybe every million channels, there's a million channels that make nothing compared to the odd ones that do. So yeah, we're not going to change the way this goes. YouTube is become a business for people to try and make either a small amount, like pocket money. Say if you had a couple of chooks in the back garden, you got eggs out for sale, or you make jam and you sell it, on to your neighbors and things. This is a way for some people to make a little bit of pocket money, and they're being creative. They're making a little jam up, they're putting it into pretty little jars and putting it out, or you're creating some content to people can sit in an armchair or sit on a couch and watch what you're doing. Now, there's two different ways you could look at that. I mean, you could put the jam out there and say to people, look, jam's free, take it if you want it. But if you feel that you've got any value from the jam, there's an honesty box there and you can chuck a few bucks into it, which is what YouTube basically is. We produce, I get tens and tens and tens of thousands of views every day. We might get 1 or 2 or 3 donation supports to the channel a month, or maybe even, a week if we're lucky. So if in a week I might have 500,000 people watch the channel and 3 people, I don't know. I'm not sure where you. I've got a few people. I really enjoy the content, and we support those people, not because we feel they need it or want it, but because I get a lot of joy from what they do, and I just feel like, thanks very much.
So Tony says, my sister-in-law and hubby cycled from Galway to Sydney a few years ago, finishing on the beach in Sydney.
Beautiful. Who was that? Tony. Beautiful. That's a little bit like our friends Chris and Pete, who cycled from the Cumbria from Hadrian's Wall to the Wall of China. And Michelle and I'd like to do something like that. That would be a plan for us to do a big trip like that one day.
So JM6 says, being a YouTuber is hard work. I make vlog style videos, not public, just for family keepsakes, and appreciate what a great deal of time goes into the content and the editing. I spend hours editing.
Yeah, I think if anybody were to say, what do you do? Even preparing for a live stream like this, it takes time out of your day, and these are probably the easiest things to do, to be honest. But they're nowhere near as complex as making a video. But anyway, I think we've probably done that.
Eddie says, back to the food. Have you got a plan for what kinds of foods you want to demonstrate anytime soon? I'd love to have some more churros in different flavors, different ways, and or flavors, perhaps.
Churros probably won't be high on my list of things to do, because churros are a kind of a sugary donut. I've done I think egg-free churros. I might do a little bit on churros, but it's not something I want to sort of invest a lot of time into. But the way I tend to work is in series. So if we get a pasta series, we do a whole series on pasta, how to make pasta, tagliatelle, spaghetti, all the different types of pasta that you can do. So I tend to do a series. One of the things I like to do is I've had a few people say to me the bread series that we did they really enjoyed, and they want some more sort of bread making. And Michelle and I love bread making, although we actually don't like eating that much bread at the moment. So that may be expanding the bread series. So there's a few, and also expanding the Mexican series, expanding the Japanese series. So there's a lot to do.
So one last thing on the money side of things. No Name says it's donation to the channel to help with anything the channel may need. It may be recording cameras with your expenses a tiny bit and much more.
Yeah, and that's the big thing. You get a little bit of income from YouTube, not a massive amount, but if people enjoy what you're doing on the channel, and they say, oh, I'd like you to not stop doing what you're doing, then you have to keep buying new gear, because
even for us just buying ingredients when you're cooking, I mean, that can be expensive.
You have to keep up to date with camera equipment and things, and that's actually something that we take on the chin, when you have to buy stuff. So if anyone supports us with that sort of stuff, it's great. Anyway, this is a
Dean
subject.
Platt says, hi, Steve and Michelle.
Dean, how are you, mate?
How does it feel to be finally back at home after being locked out for 19 months? Big thumbs up to Rick, who helped you both out.
Yeah, Rick was an absolute,
thank you, Rick.
Absolute charmer. So it's good to be back. It's good to be not bouncing. It's good not to be sort of constantly thinking about where we have to be next, and just having some time where you can just put your brain into neutral for a little while and start the creative juices going. We love traveling, but we love to know that we can have a stop occasionally, and that last 18-19 months has been a little bit awkward.
So Dean says, I'm good, thanks. And Moon over Miami says, oh, welcome home.
Hey moms, how are you?
So everybody's dropping in now. Anybody else lurking there who hasn't said anything?
Anyone lurking? It's 37 you in at the moment.
Just
so if anyone wants to say hello, and if you want to push on the monetization stuff, go for it. I don't mind talking about it. I don't have any issues with it. It doesn't trouble me any. And to be frank, I think I heard someone say, "Oh no, I won't go down that avenue." But I mean, for the tiny amount of people that feel bad about it, it's almost irrelevant, to be honest.
Yeah. Dean says, as the saying goes, no place like home. Absolutely.
No place
we enjoy
like
the travel, but it is good to come back.
We're an odd bunch. My whole family are a little bit like this. All of us, because we've traveled most of our life. We're always at home on the road. And frankly, once we've been in a place for any length of time, we're generally itching to get off and do something. So we're always at home on the road, but you do need some downtime.
Yeah, it was a bit of a long haul because we
had almost to put us off.
Well, sort of. We had to keep thinking of places, or trying to find places that we could go to. I wasn't going to break the bank.
True. Yeah, and break the bank.
That's easily done at the moment. So JM603 says, do you have a large disk array in your house, all of your videos, or do you store in the cloud?
I don't use a disk array. I use a lot of disks, but I don't overly complicate life. I mean, the fact is, if we had a large disk array, which is basically either a RAID or daisy chain of drives or whatever we would, talking a little more technically, it's many thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to start investing in that sort of stuff. And like already, it's a hobby. I don't get if somebody says to me, Steve, you should have a disk array and here's the money for it, and I'd say, okay. I probably wouldn't buy the disk array, by the way, because there's other things I'd rather invest it in.
And we travel with a lot of your disks, your hard drives and things anyway.
So no, we do tend to play a little bit of risk with our files. But for example, the whole of the John O'Groats to Land's End walking thing is on multiple sources.
The other question was, or do you store in the cloud?
No, I don't store much in the cloud. We could do, some of it does, but no, I've got a lot of disks, a lot of hard drives, a lot of big 4 terabyte plus hard drives with a lot of storage on. So that's another thing. People, that's another expense. If you get into YouTube, it costs you $100, $200 every time you're buying new drives. So, you've got to back your stuff up and be cautious with it.
Dean says the last video I saw was when you were leaving the hotel. Will there be a follow-up video at the moment you arrived home?
No.
We put the camera away.
We put the camera away.
When you saw
sorry, Dean.
It
few
away.
people have asked about that, but no, we kind of need to chill a little bit. So sorry.
And it was dark. No,
I don't want to drag all the family into our videos either. They love what we do, but they don't particularly want to be, I don't want to be one of those YouTubers that has everybody in the family in every single video. It's Michelle and I's decision to do this. It took me a long time to convince Michelle to even appear in a video. So I don't want to start sort of getting into this stage where you bring in characters and then you're sort of like,
So Dean says, "Oh, okay, sorry, I had to ask."
No, you're fine.
To ask, we'll answer. And if we don't want to answer, I'll read the question out.
I'm happy for the question, Dean. And I know what you're saying, but we're not going to become a sort of a shade-hard type family where everything's sort of like out there it's just not us.
No. And it was just nice to not have the camera, so it was good. All good.
Yeah, the camera's gathering a little dust for a week or so, and then we'll see what we'll do from there. But the problem is at the moment is you're technically not allowed to leave the house more than 5 kilometers. And that's making it really awkward because all our kids live sort of distances apart. So yeah, we're back in this dystopic world.
But summer's coming. It all gets better in the summer.
Yeah, but the weather's nice. The weather's nice.
Yeah, I think it's going to rain.
It's definitely good. It's definitely good to be back in Australia. It's definitely good to be back around the family, and it's excellent to be able to stop thinking about what's coming next for a little while.
Yeah. Yeah, because that was getting hard, wasn't it, to work out what was.
Well, when we were in Mexico, particularly, that was one of the hardest times because there was nowhere you could go. Nowhere you could go from Mexico. Really, it was like, there were tiny few, and people are going to correct me and say, "Oh, you could have gone to, so and so." But normally, if you're in a country and you say, "Right, I want to go to South America, or I want to go to the US, or I want to go here or there," it's freedom to do what you want to do. Now people say, "Oh, you could go to the US, but then there will be certain restrictions," and some places were completely anal about what was going on in the world, and some places weren't. So it wasn't the same as 2019, where you could just go and enjoy and do what you want.
So Susan's saying it's 10 Ks from home from tomorrow. Apparently.
Yeah, I heard that, Susan.
I didn't. I'm not listening to it.
Yeah, we're not. I only heard that through word of mouth. I'm not following the news.
Rin Miami says, "I love the 2 larger artwork pieces behind you on your walls."
Thank you, Moms. I'm not really allowed to talk about them, but they're my mother's drawing. She's quite a good artist, actually. They are actually classical pieces, representations of other classical pieces. But so points if you can it's a really wide camera, isn't it?
Yes.
If you can recognize what they are.
Dean says, "I cannot wait for this COVID to go and return to normality, as life isn't the same right now with all these restrictions. Too many rules where you cannot enjoy life like we did back in 2019.
Yeah, me too.
And JM603 says, "Have you ever felt unsafe at any point on your travels?"
No, not really. Never.
No.
Can you think of any time?
Mountains in Mexico, but I wasn't really unsafe. That was just a situation.
Really feel unsafe. That was just a bandits stopping us.
We didn't feel unsafe.
Wasn't there? No, we don't. We travel pretty easy. We don't. Nothing bothers us too much. Sorry, I've never really felt unsafe traveling anywhere.
So Phil Lunch Lady says Modigliani. I think that's the artwork. Have I said that right?
No, you've possibly said it wrong, but
and Suriat, not sure.
That's pretty on.
Our lunch lady knows her art, or trying to anyway. I shouldn't say that.
No, it's very much in the right vein.
There you go.
And actually, I'm not 100% sure I get it right myself.
Irish Guy 13 says, "Will Australia remove the Marxism?" Who knows?
We got a lot of numpties we got to get rid of. That's what we've got to get rid of. I don't think they could spell Marxism, never mind sort of, adhere to its ethics, if you want to put it that way.
So Dean says, I've enjoyed your journeys from start to finish, especially Land's End. That was a really tough challenge for you both, as I saw how you were struggling, but you both made it, which was the main thing.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's only when I actually start editing it, I'll realise, because it's when I start editing, I realise how hard it was. We've forgotten about how tough it was every day getting up and doing what we did, but because subsequently I've eaten a lot of tacos.
Susan says one of my favorite places is Egypt, and Eddie said Egypt was fun. Noel went there in 2004.
We've never been to Egypt,
no.
So it's one of the places still on the list of places to do.
And Rebecca Lynn, actually, she asked us before. I never read it out.
Sorry,
what place
Rebecca.
seems to have the friendliest people? Everywhere's friendly.
Everywhere's friendly.
Turkish
Everywhere's
are friendly. Mexicans are friendly.
Yeah.
Indians are friendly.
I can't think of anywhere that wasn't friendly.
We've
maybe.
never not felt welcome, have we?
No.
I can't think of anywhere we've been, so everywhere's friendly.
Maybe in the Highlands.
Cheryl says
a little less welcome.
Cheryl says your walk, I believe it was in Scotland, going down some of those roads was sketchy.
It was, yeah, there were times, but then we met some really wonderful people on that journey. It's just that there's a lot of miserable numpties that they're always the loudest. They're always,
and as we always say, we always get the camera out for those sorts of
you tend to
highlight moments.
Yeah, you tend to have an issue and you get the camera out because it's interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It would be a bit boring if it was just.
It's like newspapers don't sell good news. It's like drama is generally when you feel that you should pull the camera out and rather than.
So it seems like we had a lot of drama.
Does to me.
But maybe not.
There's some good stuff. There is some
very good stuff.
I was thinking the other day when we were hanging off the back of that.
Oh yes.
Land Rover. Was it a Land Rover?
No, it was a little white van. It had a roof rail.
We walked. We were going down the road that had really heavy rain, and we were backpacks on. We come down this road, and the road was flooded, but it was sort of deep, and maybe about foot and a half deep, and we didn't really want to wade through it, and it was long.
I'd already rolled up one leg, but it was quite cold.
We were going to go through, and then this guy came by, and we asked him if we could hang off the back of his. He had like a platform at the back, and so we both hung off the back, and he drove through the flood.
He did film that. Cool. You will see that.
You don't get to film it like the BBC can film it, sort of with a camera crew getting all the angles. You just get me hanging off the back with a GoPro or something. That's all you're going to see. It's not going to be that spectacular.
Susan says, I think that it is you show friendliness and acceptance. That is why you get what you get in return. Same if you show negativity. Absolutely.
Thank you.
I agree with that.
Yeah, you do get what you get what you.
So Dean says it is our governments who create the dramas with all the restrictions, making it impossible to enjoy life.
Yes, let's not go down that one again at the moment. We'll maybe talk about that.
And Feral Lunch Lady says Albania is great for Americans. So many people told me they had family there. They seem to like us. Yeah,
Albania is good. All that area, which is where we would have been touring around Georgia and Tbilisi in Georgia. We were going to go into was it Albania? What's just above Turkey? That wasn't Albania, was it?
No.
But we wanted to do a lot more of that area. So Central Eastern sort of European countries would have been somewhere really cool. And actually now we probably could. I think some of those places have started to open up a little bit, but we'll see.
Scott Malone says, Swaddy Cup, Mr. and Mrs. Owens.
Swaddy Cup.
Sorry, Scott. JM603 says, true, Susan, if people make the effort to talk to people, you always find you have more in common with someone than you thought. And he talks to everybody. I get to meet some interesting people.
Scott and I are like that. Scott talks to anybody he meets as well. So, this is if you've got that sort of Scott's an American, got a YouTube channel, American in Bangkok. And, we tend to like to interact with people when we meet them, and it always makes great content. And we don't do it particularly to make content. It's just I love talking to people. So it's just the way it is. And Tony says, I'm off to bed. So Tony, safe and safe. Thank you. And well, good night from the green bit.
Tony.
Swadika.
Eddie says Cambodia was an interesting place to visit. 5 days was not nearly long enough, though, to see it all.
I've had mixed experiences in Cambodia. I think because my sister lived there for many years, and yeah, it's a place that we need to go and explore a bit more. It's not my favourite place in the world, but
maybe we'll give it a second chance.
Perception can be, you know, or events can make a difference to where you go and stay.
Moon over Miami says Poland. They don't even know what COVID is.
Beautiful.
And Scott says pray.
Pray tell.
Pray.
What are you talking about, Scott?
I don't know. Eddie says Singapore was rather fun too. Yes, we like Singapore.
Singapore's really nice.
Yeah. We like all of that area.
All that area, Singapore, Kuala Lumpur, Penang, Malaysia and Singapore, really nice. Thailand.
Indonesia.
Just the people in Thailand.
Some of them.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be.
Oh, sorry, that was a reference to Scott, not to Thai people who are absolutely lovely, and so is Scott, by the way. But,
Scott says it's supposed to be a Y.
I know. Sorry. Way. Way. Binoa.
Rebecca says, how much difficulty do language barriers create?
Very little, to be honest. You get criticised sometimes. You know, we travel to many hundreds of different countries, and people say, "Oh, these are the funniest comments you get when you go to Albania, for example, and people say, don't know why you don't go there if you don't speak Albanian." And they'll give you a lot of grief because you don't speak Albanian or something, you know, or Slovakian or whatever. And you think, well, you can't speak every language. If you travel a lot, you don't just go to countries that you speak the language. You make an effort to learn as much as you can, as quickly as you can. But it's ludicrous to think that you can only go to countries that you speak the language of. Life would be so dull if you spoke, 3 languages, say you spoke French, Spanish and English, and you only then went to countries that spoke that. Oh God, life would be so dull.
I mean, you arrive, you learn please and thank you, and then you start the numbers as you learn as you get there. But and people are always happy to teach you. They want to share their language with you, don't they?
And generally, we've never had problems with languages because you can learn a few languages, numbers and things really quickly. And generally, if somebody gives you something and you go, it tells you're not happy. But if you sort of go, oh, thank you. I mean, this means the same in every language, and you smile, and you go, or pick up an apple and say, I want two apples, and they'll say the name, of the apple to you, and you learn the word and say it back. And
you forget it the next day and you learn it again. But, it's what you do.
Yeah, you pick it up. There's never, and generally almost every country I know, it really enjoys trying to interact with people who don't speak the language. It's a natural sort of thing for most of us.
And so Susan says not during durian season. I think that's referring to Malaysia, but we actually did get to like durian a little bit, didn't we?
I like durian. Yeah, durian.
It was long. Eddie says, have you two been
because of the bug?
Yeah, to Lake Toba in Indonesia?
No, Lake Toba's up above in the north, above Jakarta, I think. No, we haven't. It's a place I wouldn't mind going. That's a big lake. There's a lot of interesting towns around it. But Indonesia's huge. I mean, Indonesia is a massive place. There's so much to see over there. So
Dean says, have you ever been to South Korea? Yes, we have.
Yes, we have, Dean. And South Korea is really cool. I love South Korea.
We went to there before Japan.
Yeah.
Check it out.
We did, Dean. We'll put a little link to the South.
I'll put it in the description after this.
Okay.
Moon over Miami says the French chastised me for not speaking their language. Italians didn't care and mimed to communicate.
The French will chastise you for everything. They're a little bit sort of like that, but they're not. They want you to learn a little French, So once you make the effort, Bonjour, ça va? Bonjour, ça va? Ça va?
But it can be difficult when you're saying something and you think I'm saying this right, and then eventually they get it and they repeat back to you, and you say, well, that's what I've been saying, but it wasn't quite right.
But in my experience, most people have problems in France when they go to the big cities. So it's like if you go to some of the, like Paris or Marseille, they'll often be a little more grumpy with tourists because they're a bit over tourists. But if you go to smaller towns and things, they're usually just like they are in the USA or any other country in the world. They're much more forgiving and much more, yeah. But
the fellow lunch lady said, I studied French, but my French disapproved of my accent.
Yeah. French is one of those languages which doesn't really allow for poor pronunciation, so you've got to kind of get it right otherwise. And I can tell you a whole bunch of stories about that. We lived in France for a number of years. So
Petri says, hello, Steve and Michelle. I'm late. I'll have to watch the beginning later.
Sorry,
and
Petri.
Dwayne says hello as well.
Dwayne, how are you?
Hi.
We probably won't go on a lot longer, but thank you for coming in, Petri and Dwayne.
Susan says,
there's not a lot to say.
No.
Well, I've obviously got enough to say because I'm rabbiting on.
Susan says, I like durian too, just the smell is overpowering. It is the smell. Once you get over that, you're fine.
Yeah. I think the first, one of my friends said to me, we went to a durian festival and we were like meant to be guests of honor at this durian festival, and the Minister for Tourism from Malaysia was coming and we were going to do some bits and pieces. We did do some bits and pieces, but it was, the proverbial organizing a pee up in a brewery. It wasn't exceptionally well organized. And somebody said to me at the time, think of durian. When you think of durian, don't think of apples and pears and strawberries. Think of camembert cheese and sort of runny, sort of rich cheeses. And that way, if you like a camembert and you like a sort of smelly cheese, when you pick up a durian, don't expect it to smell like fruit. It's a fruit, but it's far from being a fruit. So when you get that in your head, that it's got those sort of savory notes and those sort of rich sort of ammonic sort of smells and things that you can get with durian, then it's a lot easier to eat.
It's still hard to get over the smell.
Yeah. And it repeats on you for hours and days afterwards, and it sometimes starts coming out of your skin.
If you eat a lot of it. Ruby Slippers says, glad you're home. Thank you, Ruby.
Thank you, Ruby.
And Eddie says, I tried to learn French, but it was difficult, Lol. I got some down, though, very much not my forte with languages.
Languages are easier to learn if you're in the country where the language is taught. It's just the way it is.
Dwayne says, my late aunt had parents from France, but forgot her French. My cousin-in-law had a mostly French background, but was still fluent in French. And Dean says, I can speak a little German and I would love to visit Germany one day.
Oh, Germany is good. I can speak a few languages, poorly, but I do find it a little bit frustrating when somebody says to you, why are you in that country? You can't speak the language. I think that's a very ignorant and stupid thing, to be frank.
Well, I think somebody said earlier on that we're tourists in the country, not immigrants, so we're not going to live there.
Yeah.
So I can't remember who said that. Sorry.
I've had that said to me in place because I never really learned to speak much Spanish as a youngster. We didn't live in Hispanic countries where they had Spanish was a common language, so I never really embraced and understood a lot of Spanish. And there's quite a lot of it's a great language to learn, but now I probably haven't got the ability to learn Spanish really well. So we just learn bits and pieces, and the Spanish language has certain strong accents that are hard for our European. It's not fair to say European because Spanish is European.
As Petri says, my tongue doesn't like French.
No, French is. Yeah, it's not a hard language, to be honest. But it's a hard language to get the French to accept when you speak it. If you don't pronounce it exactly right.
Mr. Old Clunker says, just making it in this evening and joining in. Glad you both made it home after all this time.
Mr. Old Clunker, how are you?
And Dwayne says, my late maternal grandfather knew 5 languages fluently when he came to North America in 1914 from Poland. Beautiful. He'd learned French, English, and Ukrainian in Canada. He had no formal education.
Yeah. Is that a polyglot? Polyglot? Somebody who speaks many languages naturally, fluently. I think that's what that's called. Maybe you can. Who said that?
Dwayne.
Maybe you can check that for me, Dwayne. Polyglot.
Is that someone who speaks lots of languages? Dean says Mexican, they speak Spanish, I believe. I may be wrong. Yes,
they do speak Spanish, but they speak Spanish a little bit differently to the way the Spanish do. And where we were in Merida, they speak another different patois or a different language to the rest of Mexico. So there's different there's different ways of speaking Spanish even. And Yeah, even when you go to places like where we lived in France, there was a local language that was spoken that was different to the French language. You have to remember, with France as a language, it was only really unified in the 1920s, the early 20s, because prior to that, most of the regional areas of France spoke different languages. And it was only because the current sort of head of state at the time wanted to get every regional farmer and peasant to speak one language that he made them speak Parisian sort of French. And so it's not that old a unified language, to be honest. And we still had people where we lived in France, which was on the west coast towards sort of La Rochelle and that sort of area, that still spoke, a lot of the older families still spoke the local language. And it's not even close to French. It's not even, it's a very different language. So, remember, some of these sort of languages haven't been around as a fixed language for a great deal of time. That's the same when you go into China. Everywhere in China is divided up into different ethnic groups and different linguistic sort of histories. So you don't have Chinese as one language. There's many different Hakka.
So as Eddie says, every language has dialects and accents. It's amazing the variation sometimes.
Yeah.
And
Chinese are amazing. They've got thousands of languages, and they're all very different from each other.
And Dwayne says, how come some people have no accent, even if they are from a special country? Dave Mason, a famous musician from Worcester, England, has no English accent. Worcester?
Worcester?
Worcester.
What are you reading?
I don't know.
What are you reading?
Worcester.
You're reading Worcester?
Worcester.
Oh.
She's gone
all American, can't say Worcester.
It wasn't registering with me, that one. Yes.
Worcestershire.
Yes.
I
think if it'd been Worcestershire, I would have seen it, but it just said Worcester, and I'm thinking, what's that saying?
Has it got a H in it?
No.
Okay. Probably not everybody's like me. When I speak French or Spanish, it's so good that most people can't tell that I'm not Spanish or French. Even when I speak Chinese, I've been told I speak it perfectly. So if you haven't got that skill, then I don't know.
Dwayne says it's also like with the Aboriginal dialects. Lots of dialects in Aboriginal language.
They do. They have all different languages. They're not dialects because they're not regional. Not dialects. Dialects are when you have a regional accent. I think I'm maybe getting this wrong. This, from my understanding anyway, a dialect is a regional accent, so you're speaking the same language with different pronunciations, maybe in different sort of intonation in the way you speak. Whereas when you go to, when I'm talking about in France, for example, in the Vendée area of France, they spoke a very different patois or language. Even when we visit in Italy, if we go up near Venice and the northern parts of Italy, there's a group of friends of ours that speak Friulanish, which is another language, and it's not closely related to Italian. It's the words are as different as I and ich. They're quite close.
Mr. Oldclunker says accents are learned when you are young from hearing and repeating as you learn to speak.
I was being sarcastic about my language capability. You might have been able to tell from Michelle's look.
Rebecca says, thank you for sharing your travels. Many of us have never travelled and find your trips to be quite fascinating.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome.
It's a bit bright.
No, just suddenly noticed your glasses are bright. Sometimes I've got to remember right at the end, I thought, I'll dim down the screen so it's not giving out such brightness.
Dean says, lovely painting above your sofa, by the way.
Thank you. My mum painted that. My mother painted that. Not originally. That was done by, it's a painting called The Bathers, and forget the artist. But
Gracie Kitty says, celebration time, champagne and cheers.
Cheers, Gracie. How are you all anyway? Is everybody good? Is everybody well and happy? If anyone's got any grumbles they want to make, if they've not been happy with anything, let us know. No, it's a acrylic. It's oils. Sorry. It's my mother. She's telling me it's oils, done with oils. And the original painting was done with oils as well. And it's a very good rendition of the original Bathers by Surat.
Yes, George Surratt, apparently, according to Irish Guy 13. I don't know whether that's correct.
You probably wouldn't pronounce the T. It would be Surrey, I think, if it was French. So it would be...
Rebecca says, I like the painting.
Because I think he was a French, and I think that's a Parisian scene. I think that's from somewhere in Paris. So that would have been Surrey or Surat.
Mm-hmm. Dean says, I'm really happy to see you both home.
Thank you.
Eddie says, I've been 100% healthy since February 2020, lol.
Beautiful.
And Dwayne says, where will you go next, if it is possible?
To top of our stairs. I don't know. We won't be going very, very far just at the moment, but we're trying to plan, if we can, a trip across a little bit around Australia, maybe going across to Tasmania if we can, because I think you guys will love Tasmania. Now, I've just got to drop out like the internet. Has the internet dropped out for you?
Mine's still going.
Okay.
Moon over Miami says, extremely eye-catching. Your mum is very talented.
She is. Yeah.
And Irish Guy 13 says, I've seen the original many times.
Okay. Now, I've got a bit of a dropout on the internet, I think. But can you guys see? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Can you see?
Yes, can see.
Okay.
I've got it on my screen. Yeah.
So it's showing on mine that it's is it frozen?
All good here, Eddie says.
Oh, no,
You're still here, said Mr. Clunker. Okay. And Susan says yes.
Okay, I don't know. Maybe it's just on my side. Then it looked like it dropped. I think everyone else is saying it's
Rebecca Lynn says yes. We'd love to see Australia. And Irish Guy 13 says yes. Rebecca says I can see. Dwayne says all good. So I can all see you.
I think I've got.
It's just your screen.
I think I've got a second screen open. And
see
yeah,
that?
see,
He's
look.
Playing with his mouse.
Playing with my mouse.
I did wonder where all the chat had gone. But I can still see it on mine, so I wasn't worried. I mentioned otherwise.
It's all good. Even Mum saying that.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you, Mum.
They're not frozen here, said Rebecca.
Beautiful.
No, it'll be good. I think Tasmania is
these little paintings
interesting
here
place.
Are really fascinating. They've been in the family a long time. They're really good. One day we'll talk about those.
And Dean said, I'm up for that to see more of Australia.
Yes.
Yes. Well, if Tasmania is not on the cards, I've got a couple of plans that I haven't discussed with him that we could do instead.
So I might go with her. You never know.
I might take him along. I might go on my own. I won't. Feral Lunch Lady says works here. See, it's still all working.
Yeah, sorry, that was me. I literally thought it had dropped.
Error.
I know, user error. It's a new computer. Computer.
Yes. And you can do some editing.
Yes, we need to get off the laptop and get onto a desktop. So I'm back on a desktop, and then we're going to be doing some more powerful, and we're going to get some work done.
Because the laptop grinds still hot because he's doing the editing,
particularly with these big projects that we've been doing a lot of 4K videoing or 2.7K videoing, things with the GoPro when we were walking. So that was causing all sorts of issues. And we did I don't know if anyone saw on Facebook the little sketching Michelle did. She was doing some sort of colouring in, which she likes doing when we were in. To pass the time in quarantine, Michelle would be doing some colouring in. We decided to get colouring books because she's fully grown up now, and she was allowed to sit in the big chair and do colouring in. So we made a little video of it. But when I went to try and render that video off on my laptop, it took about 2 days. And when I came back, I thought, well, I'll just chuck it on the new computer and see. It took about 5 minutes. So.
He's got power.
Yeah, we've got the power.
Yeah. We've been on just over an hour.
Right, we probably won't do over an hour, much over an hour, because I think that gets too much for people.
Yeah.
So
that's all good.
Unless Scott's still in. I know Scott likes to do a 5-hour.
You can take over, Scott, if you like. You want to take over?
I think Scott will have wandered off now. He's a busy boy.
Yeah.
But
no, it's good.
All right. So. Any more questions before we go?
I think I've.
By the way, if you're watching this later on, we'll be watching the comments. I can now because I'm in a fixed place with good internet, and I can watch the comments. I'm going to spend a whole day, probably, maybe even a day and a half, just going through all the old comments and trying to clear them off because I used to reply to all my comments. I'm going to just spend a good few hours one day going back through them. But for these current live streams, if you're commenting in the next 12 hours or so and you're watching this back, I'll be reading them. So thank you very much to everybody.
So Laurie Lumax says hi from Canada and bye.
Hi, Laurie Lumax.
Irish Guy 30 says, I'm looking for Matilda. She promised me a waltz. Dwayne says, will you go to New Zealand in the future?
Probably.
One day.
Probably.
And Dean says, bye. Moon over Miami said it was good to see you again. Looking forward to cooking with Steve. Hugs.
And for those of you that do support the channel and want to support the channel, there is always the PayPal and the Patreon if you want to get across there to wherever.
You've got to say, otherwise people don't.
Yeah, so,
Susan says, ta-da for now. See you next time.
All right. We're going to get
note,
off and we're going to have a, it's been beautiful the last 4 or 5 days, but we've gone a bit overcast, a bit autumnal or late spring.
Early spring.
All right. Take care. Love to you all. We'll see you in the next video.
Bye.
Take care. Share the love.